Metroid for the NES or Metroid Zero for the GBA? Which to play first? Honestly, either one as a starter would work. The NES was the first Metroid game to come out, while the Zero Mission was the remake of the first game with several improvements. With that in mind, it's fairly common to recommend Zero Mission to be the first game to play for newcomers. It gives off a good first impression for the Metroid series, as well as giving you access to the NES version after beating it. 2 games in 1, what a steal! That said, I personally played the NES version first. This is so I can understand the game design progression based on release. Starting with Metroid 1 on the NES, then Metroid 2 for the Game Boy, and finally to pay it off with Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo.
Yay, baby!
The payoff was great, and I just find it fascinating to see how much improvement they made throughout the series. Especially with the Game Boy, like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting the game to be so good with the hardware limitation. Like, it wasn't the best, but I didn't think crouch and shoot would be such a big deal. You can't do that on the first Metroid. Now this may sound like I'm recommending the remake over the original, which, yeah, I kind of am. Zero Mission is a good time. Same could be said about the second Metroid. You could play the 3DS version over the Game Boy, going through a remake experience. The option was there, but I chose to play the originals first, more to educate myself. You see, there's this term that sticks out like a sore thumb when talking about the Metroid franchise. Metroidvania. This term was used to describe games in a similar vein as Metroid and Castlevania. Not that one, not that one, not that one, nope. There we go, Symphony of the Night. Don't forget about the Game Boy version and the DS version, and no, that one doesn't count either. This bothers me. While I understand the usefulness of using the term during a discussion, it becomes heavily flawed when discussing about the games that it was based off. Metroid! What do we call Metroid Dread? A Metroidvania? That would be redundant. Might as well call Doom Eternal a Doom clone. And while we're at it, let's call Dark Souls 3 a Souls-like. I'm sure the fans will love to hear that.
I actually think Dark Souls 2 is an underrated Souls-like game.
My point is, I played the original first, just so I can find a different term for Metroidvania. It was a personal journey that took me until, I think, Metroid Fusion, where I came up with the word dungeon adventure. Metroid games are basically adventure games that takes place in a more confined space, requiring keys and abilities to navigate around, like a dungeon. Dungeon adventure, that's my thought process. I could go on more about this, but I want to focus more on the first Metroid game, Metroid for the NES and Metroid Zero Mission. Yeah, believe it or not, the NES version of Metroid did have a story. It was written in the manual, and it has a whole lore behind it. There's this different planets that formed the Galactic Federation who had to deal with these space pirates that were attacking their ships. It got so bad that they created the Galactic Federation Police, but they were too much to handle. These dang pirates! The Federation Force ended up having to outsource to deal with them. They're called Space Hunters or Bounty Hunters. They make a good chunk of money dealing with these pirates. Later on, things went terribly wrong when the space pirates ended up capturing something very important. A capsule from a research lab. Apparently, this capsule was discovered on planet SR388. For unknown reason, the entire civilization on that planet was destroyed. And there's a good chance that this capsule might have been the cause. That's unsettling. The Federation researchers called it Metroid, and they were trying to bring it back to Earth, but was stolen by the pirates. Oh no, the entire galaxy is in danger. They took it back to their fortress on planet Zibus. The Federation police tried to take it back, but they were too strong. There's only one thing left to do. Call in the Space Hunter. Samus Aran. It's up to you to destroy Metroid and save the galaxy. Oh, that's hype. Zero Mission actually has the exact same prologue in their manual. One thing to note is that they changed the pronoun from he to she. That's because back then, Samus's identity was more of an enigma. The male pronoun was intentionally misleading, and becomes more of a surprise when revealed that Samus is actually a woman.
Look, a dame! A woman!
The reveal became less of a big deal as the series goes forward. The fourth game, Metroid Fusion, would flesh out Samus's backstory, where Samus would bring up a character named Adam who would always refer to her as Lady. By the time Zero Mission came out, most people would know that Samus is a woman. It's not a surprise anymore. But what is a surprise is the added content they put in Zero Mission. Even though this game is a remake of the first Metroid, they added a couple of new things to the story. In the manual, there's a segment that was added in that says that Samus was raised on planet Zebes as a child. Oh, that's new. The NES didn't have this kind of backstory. In fact, the only implication about Zebes in the manual was that it's a space pirate's fortress. This implies that Samus is entering an unknown territory. She's infiltrating enemy base for the sake of her duty. In Zero Mission, it's a little different. While the motivation is still the same from the NES, there's this added layer that this place used to be her home. That what was once her childhood was now taken over by space pirates. That's tragic, and gives a whole different vibe exploring through Zebes. Because of that, Zero Mission feels more like a reboot than a retelling. Both these games starts off the same. Well, sort of. The NES lets you enter planet Zebes with no introduction, while Zero Mission starts off with Whoa! Oh! 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 Exterminate all Metroid organism on planet Zebes! And destroy Mother Brain! Oh, that intro got me pumped up. So after the intro, the game starts off with Samus' inner monologue, where Samus brought up that Zebes used to be her home before things went down, and that she's able to tell her tale here of her first battle, her so-called Zero Mission. Oh, that makes sense. Oh, I'm ready. So at this point, both Zero Mission and the NES follow the same level design. Being a side-scroller, players would instinctively go to the right, only to find out that they need an ability to progress further. This entices exploration, by going to previous areas to find abilities and items needed. In this case, the morph ball is located on the left side, which is needed to go further to the right. It's amazing how faithful the Zero Mission was in terms of the structure. It shows that the fundamental back in the NES version was really well thought out. That said, there's a lot of quality of life improvement Zero Mission provides. For example, you can crouch and shoot! I can't stress how great that is. Low grounded enemies are kinda difficult to deal with on the NES version. You either have to get them when they go against the wall, or use the bomb ability, which one could argue that it made bomb more useful during combat. That said, I like crouch and shoot. It was introduced back in Metroid 2, so love the consistency. Another quality of life improvement is the use of a map. Oh my goodness, that's such a big deal. Map in Metroid was not introduced until Super Metroid, the third installment. Metroid 1 and 2 didn't have that. Navigation back then was not the same. This brings up about the different fundamental of game design during its time. There wasn't really a tutorial during the NES era. The game doesn't tell you about the controls, nor mentions about your objective. You kind of figure out on your own and learn as you play along. That is, unless you read the manual. That's right, it not only talks about the story, but also the controls. It also mentioned about the UI, your energy, your missiles. It even talks about being able to upgrade your abilities. You gotta find them first. There's one section in the manual that pushes players in the right direction. It states that Zebes is like a giant maze. It does provide you with a map, a general map, that sort of guides you to the general direction of where the areas are. Yeah, the manual encourages you to make your own map in order to navigate through Zebes. Oh yeah, here we go! Not only is there not a map within the game, there's also secret passageways. Gotta shoot the walls using the beams and bombs to find them. This is where things get out of hand. So while secrets are nothing new on the NES, we get them with Mario and Legend of Zelda, and they're fun when you discover them, Metroid has secrets that are traps.
That's just rude.
Like, the manual tells you to find those secrets. They're required to progress further. So imagine having to shoot every single walls using bombs and beams. You tried so hard to look for one and then eventually you did! Yay! Just kidding, it's a dead end! What? Come on! Well, at least it can't get worse than this. Are you kidding me? I have to work my way out? From the trap that I fell for? How do you expect me to trust secret pathways? Metroid Zero Mission handles required secret passageways a little bit more differently. It's done so with the inclusion of a map and the Chojo statue. The map is self-explanatory. Seeing the areas around can give a good idea where the hidden pathway could be. The Chozo statue adds on to that. It puts a pinpoint on the map where the next power-up is, which we need to progress further. What's cool about this is that the pathway is not always a straight shot. I mean, it may start off like that, but it does get progressively harder. There are moments where I have to think logically how to get there. The main pathway doesn't work, so maybe there's an alternate path? Perhaps I have to go around the area. So rather than going like this, I might end up going like this. That's a Picasso. The Chozo point segments off each part of the map, which helps out a lot when focusing on discovering secret pathways. With that said, both the NES and Zero Mission do have something in common when it comes to the overall structure with the level design. It has to do with the main objective: destroy Mother Brain. The NES manual tells you how to get to her. First, we have to destroy the two mini-bosses. One is in Brinstar, and the other one is in Norfair. Eliminating them will create a bridge to Torian, which is where Mother Brain is. Zero Mission is the same thing, except rather than building a bridge, it creates a tunnel. Different build, same functionality. So we gotta find Kraid and Ridley. On the NES, Kraid looks about the same size as Samus. This is a bit jarring because Kraid is known as this large behemoth of an enemy throughout the Metroid franchise. He takes up more than the entire screen. It was really iconic in Super Metroid. So it made sense for Zero Mission, a game that came out after Super Metroid, to have Kraid stay large. He was not originally meant to be a giant, but I could understand the remake to make this kind of change. However, this kind of makes the lead up to Kraid in Super Metroid a bit underwhelming. You see, playing the NES version first gives context about Kraid's size. You see horns being shot out off screen. Oh boy, that reminds me of Kraid! By the time you get close, there he is! Oh, he looks so good on the SNES graphics. Time to take him down! Oh. That's it? Okay. Except, that wasn't Kraid. This is Kraid! Meanwhile, if you play Zero Mission first... Is that Kraid? Why is he so tiny? Oh, there you are! Yeah, the shock value is just gone. As for Ridley, yeah, he looks pretty faithful on the NES. I mean, he's bigger, but not as large as Kraid. I wish I could show you the gameplay footage on the NES where I was fighting Ridley, but my capture card decided to not work. That's alright, because we got the manual! What happened? I'm aware the artist for the manual is not the same one who made the pixel arts in-game. It's possible that they used the game as reference when drawing the art for the manual. They did a pretty good job, especially for Kraid. As for Ridley... yeah, that's a Ridley. So as mentioned before, Zero Mission added a couple of new content. There's new bosses, some areas, but the one most significant thing they added was the ending. So on the NES, after defeating Mother Brain, you go to an escape sequence, where you gotta get out of here before the whole place blows up. After reaching to the top, you completed your mission. Yeah! Depending how fast you beat the game, Samus's armor comes off, revealing that she's a lady.
A dame!
And that's the ending. Zero Mission has the same thing, except there's more afterwards. Spoiler for those who want to discover it yourself, skip right here. I'll wait. You're done? Okay, cool. So you do the same thing from the other game, defeat Mother Brain, go through an escape sequence, and by the time you got out, there's an ambush! What? Oh no! No, my ship! And I don't got my armor. Zero Suit Samus. Everything hits you like a tank, and the only weapon you got to defend yourself is a stun gun. Oh, great. We're gonna stealth our way out. So the entire section is a stealth mission, and by the time you reach to the end, you get some backstory. That's Samus as a child, with a Chozo. So we gotta fight our reflection? I don't know. But it seems to be some sort of test, because defeating it grants Samus her suit back, with some upgrades. Oh yeah. Now we can take care of these space pirates! Eventually, we meet up with Mecha Ridley. Defeating it triggers the final escape sequence, escaping it with a different ship, and mission accomplished. And it ends up with a little engravement that was likely drawn by little Samus. Aww. Now, I played Zero Mission after Fusion, well, technically after Dread, but my point is, I tried out Zero Mission after playing the other Metroid games, and that gave me a newfound appreciation for the franchise. I was able to experience the improvement with every installation, and by the time I reached to Zero Mission, oh, that was like a dessert after a nice meal. This game was definitely a love letter to the fans. I would highly recommend playing it after the NES. Just be careful with the traps. And your save codes. And every time you respawn, you start off with 30 health. If that sounds too much, then play Metroid 2 on the Game Boy. Or Super Metroid. That one is probably best for newcomers in terms of gameplay. Unless you care about the chronological order of the story, then Zero Mission. But be aware that it came out after Fusion. Regardless, just go play them. It's a fun time. You could do so with the Nintendo Switch Online subscription, or through other means.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, you know, through other ways of playing the game.
Elaborate.
You know, since the game came out for a while and there's no way of physically purchasing the game from you, people would resort to...
Resort to what?
Resort to...
Yes.
Resort to...
Yes.
Resort to... Resort to purchasing them through the secondhand market!
Huh?
That's right! Even though the game came out for a while and might be priced pretty high, you can still buy them! And own it! Purchase them through eBay, Facebook Marketplace, GameStop!
GameStop sells retro games?
Sometimes! So go on, get yourself a physical copy! Yeah! That way, you can legally emulate them.
Wait, what?